Well, it's safe to say the pandemic is over and we are still dealing with some of the aftermath and a little bit of the craziness here in California, but more specifically Sacramento. But today we're doing an updated version of what the cost of living here is in Sacramento for 2023. Living in Sacramento can be massively different than other states or where you're coming from. Heck, it can be different than other cities in California. But today we're going to be covering everything from housing, rent, gas, utilities, groceries, and everything that you should know if you're thinking about moving or relocating to Sacramento. What's up everyone? I'm Lance with L2 Home Group, and on this channel we make videos for you of what it's like to move, live, and relocate to the greater Sacramento area. So if you're wanting to stay up to date on the most current information of what it's like to live or move or relocate to the greater Sacramento area, then go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We upload new videos for you every week on Tuesday and Friday on what it's like to live in Sacramento and the surrounding suburbs. On top of making these videos, we're also a team of realtors here in the Sacramento area and one of the top relocation teams, which means that as much as we love making these videos for you, we would actually love more the opportunity to help you with all of your real estate needs. So reach out to us days, nights, weekends. We do answer every phone call, email, and text message. So there should be a phone number popping up. Make sure you pause the video, take a screenshot, write it down, whatever you got to do, or better yet, go ahead and schedule that one-on-one Zoom call so that way we can put together a game plan that's right for you on moving to the greater Sacramento area. Now, there might be a lot of different reasons of why you may be moving to the greater Sacramento area. It's one of the biggest questions we get from people who are relocating out of state or even people who are relocating from a different part of California, like the Bay Area or Southern California. So the biggest question that we get asked is, what is the cost of living like in Sacramento? So we're gonna give you some updated numbers for 2023. Now, before we start getting into some of the more granular sub items of what it relates as cost of living, we're gonna cover the biggest or the first one, which is gonna be housing expense. Now, to give you some reference, we are using a website called bestplacestolive.net to give us some ideas as it relates to housing, rent, groceries, utilities, healthcare, insurance, all of those different things that make up your cost of living bill for 2023. Now, how this website works is it gives us the national average, it gives us the California average, and then it's also going to give us the Sacramento average as it relates to the cost of living in percentile. So national average is going to be set at 100. The other two, the city and the state, are either going to be above or below that as it relates to a percentile in comparison to the national average. Now, compared to the national average, Sacramento for housing is going to be at 149% as it relates to a comparison to the nationwide average, and that's going to be for your standard 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single-family home. Now, I know that may seem like a lot, especially if you're coming from out of state, but just to give you some perspective, Sacramento is less than the state average of California, which is at 234%. So if you're going to be moving to California for job or relocation or whatever the reason is that you have to move here, Sacramento's still going to give you that big city feel without that big city ticket price. Now, one of the perks if you're coming to Sacramento from in-state, let's say Bay Area, San Francisco, San Jose, East Bay, or you're coming from Southern California like San Diego, Los Angeles, or Orange County, Sacramento is going to be a much more pleasant surprise as it relates to your housing. That's one of the main drivers as it relates to people who are coming from Bay Area or Southern California to Sacramento, is their housing affordability is so much better in relation to that 234% average. Now, this is going to include all of Sacramento County, but we'll also jump into a map here real quick and we'll show you some layers as it relates to, you have downtown Sacramento proper, then you're going to have the surrounding areas of Sacramento that are just going to be outside of downtown Sacramento, like Tahoe Park, Land Park, Curtis Park, East Sacramento, all the things that are kind of around Sac State. And then you're going to have some of your outlying suburbs that are still going to be a part of Sacramento County, but could be a little bit different of a lifestyle than you're used to. Things like Carmichael, Fair Oaks, Orangevale. You've got Sacramento proper that's on the other side of the American River. So there's definitely a lot of different options. We'll jump into a map here real quick, show you what those look like on a map. So that way you can get a perspective of what we're talking about here when you're seeing downtown Sacramento as a whole and then some of those other areas. Hey guys, what's up? I just wanted to jump here on the computer real quick before we jump back into some of those stats for cost of living, just to give you some perspective of what it looks like for the Sacramento area, where you're, some of these areas that we kind of just talked about. So, realistically, when we zoom in on a map, right, you have really kind of this downtown proper that's going to be bordered by, Highway 50 on the south side, you got Interstate 5 on the side of the river, you got Interstate or Business 80 on the east side. But then, so you're going to have Sacramento proper, which is going to be some of these more like loft style, kind of more older Victorian homes. Then you're gonna have some of these additional neighborhoods that aren't gonna be directly in the heart of Sacramento, but you're gonna have like Land Park, Curtis Park, you're gonna have Oak Park, Tahoe Park, You're gonna have East Sacramento. So this is still gonna be, Sacramento proper, a little bit different of a feel. You're gonna be a little bit further away from, some of the areas like Golden One Center, or, some of the bars and great restaurants down there. You've got Sacramento State University. And then as it relates to kind of Sacramento County, when we were looking at some of these, you're gonna have North Natomas and South Natomas. That's gonna be a little bit more suburban. And then as you start getting over here in Sacramento County, right, you got Citrus Heights, Orangeville, Folsom, Fair Oaks, Carmichael, Rancho, La Riviera, Rosemont. Fair Oaks is over here as well too. So, you have a couple of different areas as it relates to Sacramento County and the cost of living. The further you get away from the heart of Sacramento, you're going to be dealing with a little bit longer of a commute, whether it's on 80 or 50. However, you also might get a little bit more bang for your buck as you start pushing the boundaries from Sacramento proper out to a little bit more of these suburban areas. So jump right back into it. Just wanted to kind of show you, some of these different layers as it relates to kind of the central part of Sacramento, some of these cities and areas. Another area too, so you still got Elk Grove down here, which isn't too far away for Sacramento County. And then you've also got the Pocket area, which is another kind of a smaller neighborhood. A lot of people don't really realize, but it's bordered by Highway 5, or it's bordered by Interstate 5 and the river. Super cute neighborhood in here. Lots of really nice houses. A couple of them sit on some of these man-made lakes. You've got Device Brewery that's in there as well too, which is an awesome brewery, one of our favorites to go check out. But yeah, super cool little neighborhood here. We did a vlog tour video on some of these homes in here, but you got some of these homes that just kind of back up to the river. You got these like nice large lots, so super cool area. But yeah, let's jump back into it, check out some of these cost of living. Now, if you're deciding that you're wanting to move to Sacramento, but you're not ready to purchase yet, or you're not ready to set roots down here, rent for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment is going to be somewhere between $1,400 and $1,500 a month. Or if you go up from there and you find, a 3 or 4-bedroom house, you're probably going to be looking at somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 a month for rent for a single family home. Now, like we said, we're using this website called bestplaces.net, and they actually have some nice little calculators. They've got all the different categories from cost of living. They've got the breakdown in utilities, groceries. So if you want to double check any of this stuff, or you want to just kind of work your own numbers out for you or your family, go ahead, check that website out. It's super useful, super helpful. But this is one of those tools that we like to use when we have people who are relocating to the greater Sacramento area. Now, one of the next biggest expenses for people who are relocating to the greater Sacramento area is going to be utilities. Now, one of the biggest reasons for this is going to be that Sacramento County has SMUD, which is Sacramento Municipality Utility District, in comparison to a lot of other places in California where you have Pacific Gas and Electric for most of Northern California, or if you're coming from Southern California, you have, LADWP, or you have San Diego Gas and Electric. Now, utilities are going to probably contribute to a larger portion of your utility bill because it also is associated with your house. So some of these numbers are going to be reflective depending on the size of house you have, the size of people in your family, and how much you're using those utilities. But one of the pluses for Sacramento is right now, in comparison to the national average, Sacramento is at 98.4% of the national average, and it's going to be about 4% less than the 102.4% that's the California average. Those are all going to be massive factors. So, not that these are exact numbers, but I would say that, SMUD is usually about 30 to 50% less than Pacific Gas and Electric, just, in comparison to some of these houses here in Northern California. And I imagine it's probably going to be a significant difference if you're coming from somewhere in-state like, Southern California or the Bay Area. Now, if you're coming from out of state, we do our electricity charges a little bit differently. So I know some people are on time of use, like in Arizona, or some people are on East Coast are on like supply and delivery charges. So a little bit different. We have a tier system out here. It does usually spike in the summertime, but that's the nice thing about Sacramento and SMUD specifically is usually their electricity charges are a lot cheaper than some of these other bigger name companies in the West Coast or in the California area. Now, in relationship to natural gas, water, and garbage, those are all going to vary depending on what city and state that you live in. Places like Orangeville, Carmichael, Fair Oaks, Sacramento, they all do things a little bit differently. Folsom, so depending on where you're looking at for water and garbage, but as a whole, Sacramento County 98.4% in comparison to the national average, so should be a little bit better as it relates to saving you some money there. Now, the next topic that we're going to talk about is going to be transportation. Now, transportation is going to include things like public transit. It's also going to include gas, maintenance fee on your cars. It doesn't include registration or insurance, but I'll touch on a little bit of that just to kind of give you some perspective, because that is a big factor that a lot of people aren't used to, or at least when they're coming into California, it's definitely a question that they have, or some things that you weren't aware of. Now, transportation costs in Sacramento is going to be 121%, which is going to be 21% higher than the national average, but it is going to be less than the California average, which is going to be 132%, I believe. So at the time of recording this video, gas has decreased a little bit. So for a regular gallon of gas, it's going to be somewhere between $4.53 up to about $5.17 per gallon. And for a premium gallon of gas, it's going to be $4.69 all the way up to about $5.35 a gallon of gas. So gas prices have decreased a little bit. We do have a lot of taxes on our gas. We almost have about $1.25 in gas tax. So in addition to that, those are going to be some of the biggest charges that you can experience if you're moving to California from out of state. Now, if you're moving to Sacramento from in-state, usually our gas prices are going to be about 20 to 30 cents cheaper than other areas like San Francisco, LA, San Diego, or the Bay Area. Now, keep in mind some of the biggest shockers for people who are moving to California, and this goes from more of an out-of-state perspective, but a lot of shocker for people coming into state is going to be registration. So we do our registration every year here. Usually for certain cars, it can be anywhere from $200 to $300 on the low side, and that's an extreme rare case, but it could also be anywhere from $600 to $700 on the high side, and that's going to be for your heavier vehicles like trucks, vans, SUVs, things like that. So that's going to be a big shocker. A lot of people aren't really expecting that, especially if you're coming from out of state. In-state is registration is usually going to be a little bit higher, and then insurance has been a little bit different, whether it's we'll talk about homeowners insurance separately, but insurance from a car's perspective is going to be a little bit higher as well here too. Now, jumping into groceries for Sacramento, Sacramento is going to be ranked at 104% of the national average, which is 4% higher, but it's going to be 1% lower than the California state average of 105%. Now, for this one, I think primarily this is due to the fact that we have a lot of good healthy options that are going to be probably a little bit more expensive. So Sacramento is known as the farm to fork capital. So we have a lot of really good health food stores here. I would say Sacramento as a whole is active, it's healthy. There's a lot of people that like to take care of their bodies here. We got different stores, like we got the Sacramento Co-op downtown, which is usually always healthy, organic, different types of foods. We've got Whole Foods here, we've got Sprouts, we've got Nugget. So we've got a couple of different local smaller chains as well too, but those are going to be kind of your big name health food stores that are going to probably be a little bit more expensive. So, you can have a $15 bag of potato chips or a $15, quart of milk, however crazy you want to get, but sometimes that's where those numbers are going to be at. But we also have, some of our just more traditional grocery stores. So we have Raley's, we have Safeway, we have Costco. That's where a lot of people tend to buy in bulk. We have Sam's Club. We have some smaller or discounted grocery stores as well too. So we have options for everything in between. Your grocery bill and your grocery budget is going to be largely due to the fact of like how many people you have in your family. So, whether it's a single person or one person, two person family, all the way up to a 5 or 6 person family. I know people who have, a family of 5 or a family of 6, and they probably drop $2 or $3 grand a month on a Costco and grocery bill just because, as kids get older and they become teenagers and they start playing sports, a lot of that stuff ends up being, more expensive. So it just depends on how healthy you want to be, and then also how big your family is or how big your family size is, how many people. Now, a couple of these other things that I will, factor into is, so Sacramento being farm to fork capital, we're located right here in the Valley of California. So probably within a 100-mile radius, we have tons of different agricultural farms. So once you get outside of Sacramento, in between some of the major cities, you got a lot of farmland, a lot of agriculture. That's one of our main businesses for California. So we have a lot of really good farmers markets. So within the Sacramento area, from Elk Grove to Sacramento up to Folsom, Roseville, wherever you're really looking at, I would say each city has their fair share of farmers markets where you can get locally fresh, organic vegetables, fruit, lots of other honeys, different things like that too. So, you can have a wide variety from farmers markets all the way up to your, bigger chain Costco's, Whole Foods, Nuggets, and everything in between. One of the other things that we want to talk about, or at least we want to mention on this video, is going to be kind of like your taxes and your insurance. So taxes and insurance is, kind of what California's been known for lately. So, our property tax in California is going to be a flat 1%. Now, there are going to be a couple of little minor, levies and bonds and different things that are going to be on your property tax bill. Each city and each part of Sacramento is going to be slightly different. So as you're looking for a property, if you're looking to purchase, we can always pull up the property tax records and get a better understanding. A general rule of thumb there is going to be somewhere between, 0.1 to 0.25% of your purchase price. So we do everything based off of your purchase price here in California. So if you buy a $500,000 house, it's going to be kind of a 1.1 to 1.25% of that purchase price. The other factor that a lot of people are starting to learn a little bit more about, especially as you're looking at newer construction or new home communities, is going to be a Melrose bond or a Melrose tax, or sometimes they call them CFD taxes, community facilities districts. So a lot of that is for building new infrastructure for new up and coming communities. So first responders, new schools, streets, sidewalks, lights, all those different things. So some newer communities may have a Melrose tax, not 100% everywhere or every city, but something to be aware of or something to at least have on your radar there. Now, the second thing is going to be homeowners insurance. Now, homeowners insurance is also going to be very particular based off of the type of property that you have, how much it's going to cost if you have to rebuild it, other factors that are going to be calculated into there, right? So California is starting to see different insurance carriers that are no longer issuing policies in California. So some of that, depending on how far up, Interstate 50 or Interstate 80 you decide to go into the foothills, the more you start getting into some of those wooded areas. We have some stuff called fire insurance here. So fire insurance is going to be an added cost. Typically, I've seen people who can have insurance policies that range anywhere from about $900 a year all the way up to about $1,500 a year to $2,000 a year. So that varies depending on, the type of house you have, how much it's going to cost to get it to rebuild, all of those different things. But keep in mind, that is something that you can have set up as an impounded account on your home payment, so they can take care of your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance as a part of your monthly bill. But you're going to get a wide variety of that. The fire insurance is one of those things where people will start looking more towards those rural areas or some of those more wooded areas in California. Fire insurance start to play a factor where you're getting an added $1,000 to $5,000 depending on the property, the area, and all of those different things, especially when it relates to the fire insurance. Now, the last thing I want to cover that wasn't on bestplaces.net that a lot of people don't really think about is going to be like childcare or daycare, right? So especially if you're moving or you're relocating from out of area, out of state, and you don't have grandma or grandpa to help you with daycare, daycare is one of those things that you want to start looking into a little bit sooner than later. So, we've had some people that are moving to this area and their plan is, 3 to 6 months out. You start looking for your childcare now, because some of these places get booked up really quick and some of these places just, they have waiting lists. So that's one of those things that I will say, childcare can be something that you want to have on your radar a little bit sooner. Start shopping around, start looking around, start figuring out, where you want to have your kid go for daycare, and then start budgeting it. Childcare seems like it's expensive anywhere. It can be ranging anywhere from $13,000 a year up to $18,000 a year, depending on how many kids you have or what your work schedule's like. But there are a lot of different options, in-home nannies, au pairs, different things that you can utilize at your discretion. Sometimes people just need somebody to have in their house while they're working remotely or whatever it may be. But I will say childcare is one of those things that's been a constant conversation that people have been bringing up. So keep that in mind when you're planning your move or you're planning on relocating to a new area. You may not have the family or friends support network, but that's something that we can always help you with, right? We can help you set up some contacts. We can have some referrals for daycare, little things like that that can make a big difference as you're making or planning your move to the greater Sacramento area. So if you're curious to know a little bit more of this information, or you want to dive a little bit deeper into what it actually looks like, or setting up a game plan of how we can make your move a little bit easier to the greater Sacramento area, that phone number should be popping back up. We are the ones that answer every phone call, every email, every text message personally. So take a screenshot, pause the video, write it down, whatever you got to do, or better yet, go ahead and click the link in the banner or down in the description below. Schedule that one-on-one Zoom call so that way we can actually put together a game plan, learn your goals, figure out what you're trying to do, and put together the best game plan that's right for you as it relates to moving to the greater Sacramento area.